So here's a cool little piece of information for you. I saw this episode of Ring of Honor live because I was in Las Vegas and I have eyes and I was at the show. That's it. Also, hello, my friends. Welcome to Ups and Downs for Ring of Honor. And as people continue to ask me, yes, in a couple of weeks, we shall be upping those downs for AEW Collision. The first one will go live on Sunday morning, but then we're going to have to go live every Monday just because of other things I have going on in my life, namely actually being a wrestler. There's also going to be some other changes to Ups and Downs, including an old favorite returning. So we'll just leave it there, and I'll talk to you again in around about 14 days. Otherwise, our first match was the Kingdom versus the Infantry, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Sean Dean, because that man was very kind with his time when I did go out to Double or Nothing and we got to have a chat after the pay-per-view, so I just wanted to give him a salute and say it was a pleasure meeting you, and you absolutely rock. Otherwise, this was your usual good Ring of Honor match between two teams that probably need a little something down the line. I mean, they just engage in the grappling, and you can sit there and go, ha ha ha, they know what they're doing. Charlie Bravo was also rocking and rolling for a little bit until he realised he was a bit too close to Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, and then they started to beat the crap out of him, including hitting him with a brain buster and hitting him with a frog splash. And given that it was kind of a combo, I suppose you could call that a frog buster. Dean did get the hot tag and he was lighting everybody up here, and you're like, oh, he's going to do it. When of course, Maria Kanellis, who was at ringside, went, ha ha, I'm gonna cast distraction. And you have to ask the question, who lets her go out to ringside? She keeps doing it. It did allow the Kingdom to hit the Pro Team back and get the 1, 2, 3, and then everybody shook hands, because that's what we do in ROH. And it kind of feels like the Kingdom is about to go on to something. Wouldn't surprise me if they get a tag team title match soon. This was good, and I loved seeing it live. Up. When Skye Blue defeated Trish Adora. Now the coolest thing about this is that Skye got a proper entrance pop when her music did hit, and this is one of those things that somehow is lost in translation, because I did watch Ring of Honor back, because I know how to do my job, and it sounded louder in the building than it did on TV. So sometimes just put your hands up and enjoy it for what it was. People still going, oh, the crowd didn't sound very loud at Double or Nothing. Why do you care? Go get a real problem. Also, I was in the damn building and it was really loud. I'm still deaf. What are we talking about? Adora just booted Blue in the face at one point, so Skye was like, all right, well, if you're going to boot me, I'm going to boot you. And she was definitely trying to break some backs, because then she hit a back breaker. The clue is in the name. The crowd was so behind Skye, I felt like a proud parent, which doesn't make any sense, because what the hell did I do? But all of a sudden, dun dun dun, she got locked in the Cobra Twist. And I had to double check that. No, it's not a dance. Skye was able to get out of that where she did hit the Code Blue, but recently that's become more of a signature because she followed up with Skyfall, which she did get from James Bond, and she got the 1, 2, 3. And I know I say this about a lot of people on Ring of Honor, but both of these guys can be pushed, especially Skye Blue. She has been working away and getting better and better and better, and now is the time up. When it's time for sadness. Damn it. Well, Stu Grayson has been totally corrupted by the righteous, and yeah, here it was those three taking on the Dark Order, and the main thing I want to talk about is towards the end of this, you did get Stu Grayson and Evil Uno facing off against each other. And I tell you, I was so invested in this, I kind of feel like we should have done it on Dynamite. Felt like a big deal. What was even better than all of this, though, is that Stu Grayson actually got the better of the Dark Order, which means joining Dutch and Vincent was the right thing to do. I mean, he hit Evil Uno with Nightfall, and this is when Vincent went, ha ha, and he tagged himself in, and he got the pin, and obviously before this, he too had been casting distraction, because bad guys in wrestling can't help themselves. But they did leave as a group, as the Dark Order was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe our friend has betrayed us. And I tell you why this is standing out too, because I know I keep going on about it, you don't get that many stories in Ring of Honor at the moment. It's more of a, hey man, you want to see a good match? Come and watch our program. So let's do more of this, and let's continue to build this and see where we go. I like the Dark Order. I think they're absolutely fabulous. Giving it up. We did get kind of more of this afterwards though, because we zoomed backstage. Zack Sabre Jr. and Samoa Joe are kind of friends. They're also kind of falling out. They were both taking credit for their win last week and saying, oh, I'm a better champion than you. And while they did call themselves the Island Boys, like they are going to be a team, the passive aggressiveness here was through the roof. And if I saw a friend of mine in a relationship like this, I'd be like, come here, pal, you gotta get out of it. Which is when Diamante beat Promise Braxton. It was fine. It goes back to what I keep saying about ROH in the sense they do just come up with brand new talents and allow them to improve in front of TV cameras, which you do need to do, which I assume is what AEW Rampage is going to do soon when that becomes the new AEW Dark. give me a minute, I've got confused. And Diamante was definitely healing up here, because at one point she was like, hey, promise, boop, and she poked her right in the eye. But no, she didn't go boop. Braxton knew how to get back into this though, because she grabbed Diamante and just threw her into the ring post, and she hit a Meteora for a pretty good near fall. However, Diamante has been pushed more recently, so she locked in that straitjacket submission, which does look like attempted murder, and we got the quick tap out here, and I always appreciate that. If somebody was choking you, you wouldn't go, oh, let me try and hold on. You go, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. I should probably just give up and quite literally live to fight another day. So I'm not entirely sure of the direction of either of these, but I enjoy seeing them. It's like a thing you could do on Ring of Honor. I don't even know what that meant. When we had big men slapping man meat. I mean, it was Brian Cage versus Willie Mack. Once again, this was an absolute joy to see in person, because you can actually hear the slaps and you're like, yeah, get him. And these two don't make any sense. They are the equivalent of 2 + 2 = potato, because not only are they really strong, and they were just picking the other guy up like it was nothing, but they can fly around as well. We got standing moonsaults, we got a frog splash. I watched the whole thing like this. Didn't know what was going on. Some of the suplexes were absolutely crazy as well. And once again, as if the other guy weighed about 7 pounds, when Willie Mack hit a Samoan drop. I was like, wait a minute, he's not Samoan, so I suppose it was just the drop. Bill O'Brien was actually going to F5 Mack at one point, and I totally believe he could do it, when instead they decided, well, I'm going to German suplex you, and you're going to German suplex me, Guten Tag. When Brian Cage just took that massive bicep and went, Buh! And smashed Willie Mack with a lariat and got the 1, 2, 3. We should do a best of 7 series with these two. I'm not even kidding. And every time, they just slap each other harder. I enjoyed this muchly. As I did Zack Sabre Jr. versus Rocky Romero for the NJPW TV title. We have talked before about how Rocky can just work with anyone, and this Zack Sabre Jr. man, I think you could run up to him, put a gun to his head and say, if you don't have a bad match, I'm going to pull the trigger, and he'd try and screw up, but he wouldn't be able to. He's just so damn technical and smooth. He is also on a roll at the moment because he is defending this championship all over the place, but what he wasn't ready for was Rocky Romero, who was like, look at you doing your stupid, oh man, submission stuff. It's 2023, and he busted out some dives. He went for one too many, and Zack caught him and wrapped him up like a pretzel, and this is when we got the announcement, oh, 5 minutes have passed, and I tell you, more matches need to have time limits in it like this, because it just gives you an instant story. You're like, oh no, Rocky Romero's only got 15 minutes, he better speed up. Rocky then smashed out this amazing DDT, got kicked in the back of the head when he hit a sliced bread for a 1-2 kick out. Very sadly, it was a little bit hard to invest in this, because Zack ain't losing his championship on a random episode of Ring of Honor. New Japan would lose their mind. So that is probably something that we do need to address, and he locked in the ground cobra and he got the win. Once again, it's a massive applause for Rocky Romero, because as soon as he realized he was in this, tap, tap, tap instantly. So I'm like, that move must hurt. He stood no chance. And again, these two have great chemistry. Braxton and Andretti and Darius Martin continued their awesome tag team after this. Seriously, we have something here. We just stumbled across it. They were facing the Workhorsemen too, which was so smart, because it meant on one side of the ring you had Speed, and on the other side of the ring you had two dudes who act as really good bases. JD Drake and Anthony Henry were just smashing these dudes for a while, until Action got the hot tag. And I just love that his name is Action. He was just springboarding all over the place like he wanted to be a pogo stick when the Workhorsemen were like, nah, we ain't into this. Killed him with the End of Days, and it would have been the end, but Martin broke it up at 2. It woke the good guys up, and they hit this double face buster known as the pendulum swing to get the 1, 2, 3. And when Dante Martin comes back, we should make them an official trios, and they should have a match with the House of Black for those championships, because it will rock. Once again, everybody shook hands after this, which always confuses me a little bit. I'm like, man, the heels are really nice in Ring of Honor. Actually makes me feel quite warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum, because nice is nice, and I like nice. Which brought me to one of my personal highlights seeing Ring of Honor live. It was the Butcher and the Blade and Kip Sabian. They just squashed them fools. I mean, it honestly was over in about 30 seconds, and the other 3 people had no chance, because the Butcher and the Blade closed their shop up early, Kip joined them, they just hit one big trio bomb of power, 1, 2, 3. And even in the building, I was like, wait a minute, did I fall asleep? It was over so far. You always do need one of these on a show like this though, because it just breaks it up, and I tell you, we need to do more with these 3 individuals, because they're totally brilliant, and their dynamic is a little bit weird, but it just works, and you can tell they're putting the effort in. I'm a huge fan of all of this. up. Like, I kind of see why we did put that there too. Because the next match was Komander, Vikingo, and Bandido taking on Serpentico, if it was Serpentico, Angelico, and Jack Cartwheel. It was absolutely ludicrous. I also want to give a quick shout out to Jack Cartwheel, because we worked the same show over WrestleMania weekend, and like the lovely man that he is, he gave me a lift back to my hotel when I needed one. Also, I just absolutely love his wrestling. I don't know how he floats around like he does. It's a genuine pleasure to watch. Otherwise, though, I can't recount this, because it would be impossible. It was like gravity had cheated on all of these guys with their respective partners, so they were like, ha, we're going to get revenge and prove that we don't need you, because they were doing springboard, they were doing dives, they were just flying all over the place. And some people don't like this kind of wrestling, and I just want to say, I think you're absolutely bonkers. It's just so much fun. I mean, there was cartwheel splashes, obviously one-arm presses, and some of the flips that they did do, I just sat down at one point. Not that I watched Ring of Honor standing up. I mean, I literally sat down on the floor because I just needed to do something a little bit weird because all of this was frying my brain. Bandido just threw Serpentico into Luther at one point because he was at ringside, and I suppose he didn't like it. Which is when Komander did his big rope walk thing and he took out Angelico. I was just like, all these guys, what are we doing here? Why is somebody running on the ropes? Vikingo too just spent the whole match going doing, 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 and flying around the place when he did hit his 630, and they got the 1, 2, 3. And once again, if you want to run this back on a Dynamite, you probably should. Although we do have that crazy 3-way on Rampage, and obviously that's been filmed, and apparently that's terrific too. I love all of these guys with all of my heart. When we got a proper 180, it was Shibata versus Alex Coughlin. Good grief. Now, there was some added warmth and fuzziness because, of course, Shibata taught Coughlin, so they must have been like, oh man, I can't believe we get to do this. And I think early on, Shibata realized, wait a minute, even though I taught this fool, he's now trying to smack me around, I've got to kick his ass. And you also know the deal with this. Anytime Shibata is in a match, I'm just a little bit scared. I mean, he literally broke his brain. Some people say he shouldn't even be wrestling. He's still so good though, because he went from ruining this guy's arm to just choking him. And of course, he's the Pure Rules champion right now, which means Pure Rules were in effect. So Shibata was like, well, I'm just going to keep putting you in submission after submission. You're going to use up all your rope breaks. And he did this in about 7 seconds. That may be an exaggeration. The thing is, it meant that Alex had to come back with something, and he did it by suplexing Shibata, and in my head, he landed right on his skull. Now, he did not do this, but as I've already told you, it's why I get the fear. He then decided to chop him over and over again, which I thought must be a terrible idea, although when Shibata started strangling again, he hit him with a power bomb. That's it, I was down, good grief. Shibata then realized he can't lose to this guy, because again, what would that say about his tutelage? So he did just smash him with the PK and get the 1, 2, 3, and then they embraced afterwards. And eventually, Shibata is going to have to lose this championship, and I have no idea who it's going to be to. Don't worry, we do have some kind of crazy plan. It's just totally crazy. Which meant our main event was Athena versus Kiera Hogan for the ROH Women's Championship, and I love that we did do this, because Athena is the MVP of the promotion at the moment. I mean, she's just been great. We also played this differently because Athena wasn't as dominant as she usually is here, and given that we had a post-match angle where Kiera Hogan whooped her ass, I actually think we may be putting together a feud. Good. The only problem, though, is that after Kiera had a wonderful start, Athena grabbed her and chucked her into Barry Barricade. Look at me. Can't even get mad about this anymore. Rolls up to 55. We only started about a month ago. I think I'm gonna have to give this up soon. I'm sorry, Barry. I let you down. It actually almost worked though, because Hogan only got back in the ring at the last second, which is Athena was like, all right, if you're going to break my plans, I'm going to take your arm and I'm going to try and rip it out of the socket. I think she almost did. It ended with an armbar, so Kiera was like, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit you with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. When that didn't work, she got to her feet. She busted out Hurricane Rana. Now, once again, I did struggle to actually believe that Kiera Hogan was going to win here, because it wouldn't have made any sense, but fair play to them, because they worked their ass off. And again, Kiera Hogan only lost basically because of nefarious means. Because she went for another most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. Athena was like, no. She reversed it. She hit her own version of the surprise roll-up, but she held the tights, and she got the 1, 2, 3. Then she was like, I beat you. So yeah, Kiera's like, oh yeah, did you? Just smacked her right in the face. It led to an absolutely massive brawl, which was really cool, because it meant when Ring of Honor went off air, it did leave you with this little bit of a cliffhanger. I know I keep repeating myself, but hey, I've got to do something. Ring of Honor needs more of this, so I'm going to give it an up. I thought it was a great main event, and I think it's awesome that we're going to do something with Hogan, but I'm going to give it down overall because we do have a few stories here, but Ring of Honor keeps teasing, and we can absolutely do more with it, so I'm hoping if I throw it out into the ether, like Ryu throwing a fireball, eventually it will come home to roost. No idea what that means, but look, this is the deal with ROH. If you just have 2 hours on a Friday, whatever it is, and you just want to see good match after good match after good match, and people who are probably going to be stars in a couple of years, this is the show for you. Up. Now please do leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about last night's episode of Ring of Honor. Like the video, share the video and subscribe. Click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs for AEW Dynamite. I'd appreciate you joining me for that. Again, going to be some changes in around about 14 days, so keep an eye on them. Otherwise, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Give your loved ones a hug, because why wouldn't you? Goodbye.